when you're taking a loan and going all in into crypto during the bear market, your risk tolerance is high up there.
Yeah.
So how do you see the whole agency world embracing that Web3 angle?
I think it's going to impact agencies in two ways.
GM everyone, and welcome to Fuel for Thought, where we explore the multifaceted world of Web3 through the lenses of different industries and thought leaders. My name is Chris Loisance, and today we have a dear friend of mine and very experienced professional on the agency side of things. That's Adam Crowle. How are you today, Adam?
Morning. Yep, I'm really good, thank you. I can't complain. The sun's out. It's glorious here in the UK. So yeah, really excited for this conversation. Slightly daunted because your last guest, Ingi, who I've spoken to personally, and we've worked with Golden Wolf before, is just an incredible kind of leader in this space that we're playing around in. But yeah, let's do this. Let's have some good fun.
Yeah, I've had some legends in the podcast until now, but you know we keep the standard up with you. So we're really happy to have you. So guys, for your information, Adam is business lead and partner at BBH London. That's a global advertising agency. They've worked with Audi, they've worked with Netflix, they've worked with Burger Kings and different brands like this. So major brands. And he focuses primarily on client servicing. So he helps major brands bring to life their creative vision and communications in the most effective ways possible. And besides that, he's also a Doodles maxi. So we have a lot of interesting things to talk about in terms of brand building, IP, and Web3 in general. And he's also a huge coffee head. So what's your fuel for thought today? Is it coffee? For me, it's coffee.
Yeah, I've got my cup of coffee in here. And talking about Doodles Maxi, I don't know, can you see behind me? Can you see Mello, the plushy toy? Is that in the background?
No, I can't. I can't show it to us though, because people might not know Mello.
Oh, yeah. Let me get it. This little dude here? I keep it in my study now because I've got a 14-month-old called Lowen, and he's the most happy, joyful little boy. And when I have to have him with me, because sometimes I have to work from home, and today he's actually not feeling that great. But when I've got him in the study with me, he just loves playing with the Doodles paraphernalia. And Mello the cat, yeah, he's just adored with it. So yeah, Doodle Maxi, you've caught me out there.
Yes, I see. So, but the good thing with IPs like Doodles is that there's plenty of growth to witness, because it's not only something that is going to grow inside the Web3 space, it's something that I believe will grow beyond the Web3 space in all culture defining segments and all aspects of entertainment, be it for 7-year-olds to 77-year-olds. So, that's a very exciting journey to be part of as a holder.
Yeah, and you're spot on there. It feels like we've segued straight into Doodles, but it's pretty cool because I can't say names or anything like this, but one of our clients who also play in the space, both from more of a actual they're looking into it to see what they can do, plus on a personal level. And Ingi and I had a conversation with one of them, and when Ingi was explaining the Doodleverse and the talent that's within that Doodles team from a leadership point of view, and also when he was articulating all the different areas that they're going after, it's just an incredible story and IP and brand to, one, be a part of. Like, you're a holder, I'm a holder. We've kind of got some level of brand ownership with Doodles, which is really cool. We've got a little bit of skin in the game to be on the journey with them and have that kind of front seat. And the areas that are exploring in terms of the music and the products and the community building and the incubator stuff, I just find it an absolutely creatively inspiring kind of world to be a part of. And I don't know if you feel the same, but what I've noticed, and on LinkedIn specifically, actually, where I've been using my Doodle PFP as my PFP, it's attracted other Doodle members who are also using their Doodle PFP as their PFP, which stands out brilliantly on their social platforms. But there is a lot of creative industry people within our Doodle community, and that kind of coming together of like-minded values, aspirations, sharing inspirations, thoughts, ideas. It's just one of those most, it's really hard to explain, and it sounds extremely weird as a 38-year-old man sitting in his study working for an advertising agency, but it's just a melting pot of great kind of minds coming together with loads of ideas and stuff, which, yeah, it's just super exciting. So, yeah, big fan, and I'm really excited to see where they go, and I'm really excited to see where each individual community member and their projects, and I think you've got one in the incubator, if they pass, what happens to those, because it will benefit the holders, the community, and the brand in this kind of like synergistic way, which is it's pretty awesome, and it's one of the key pillars I love about the Web3 space, actually.
Yeah, it's you mentioned something interesting, the community aspect and the diversity of people that you meet there. You know, it's not something that is only found in the Doodles community. You find it in other communities as well. But you know, that's something I mentioned to Tatiana Lupar from Moi Tennessee last week, actually, and she agreed upon it. Is you know, there's a melting pot of people from different industries, different centers of interests, different skill sets that are coming together, and that are contributing to growing this space. It's a very, very exciting time to be in. So, you know, really exciting to share that with you. If we go back one step to your career path and to the industry you're in, so you know you've been working for more than a decade in the agency world. What exactly passionates you there? What drives you in the agency world at BBH London?
So it's really interesting. So yeah, gosh, it makes me feel really old. So I've been in the advertising marketing industry for 15 years plus now. And when I first left university, I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do. But from coming from Cornwall, so those people that know the UK, Cornwall is most southwest part of the United Kingdom, and it's kind of it's seen as kind of like the UK is not always sunny, but it's kind of seen as like the sunny haven. There's loads of beaches, surf culture, and art's a big thing. So when I left university and having that background from Cornwall of art and like lots of cool kind of like creative culture and things like this, I didn't know what to do, and I just randomly stumbled upon a marketing agency called Hogarth, and I actually applied. They turned me down in the interview, but then I called them up because I just loved the buzz of a creative agency when I walked in there. So I called them up and I said, look, I'd love to understand why you didn't take me further along the process. And the single thing was just experience. So I just said to them, I'll work for free for a month and just see how it goes. So I worked for a month. They gave me a job afterwards, and I just fell in love. I fell in love with both the strategic side to it all, specifically consumer behavior, and getting under the skin of how to capture attention, how to curate engagement, and how to drive an action. I also learn a lot about lots of different creative skill sets that are involved and all the specialisms there, which we'll get to further down in our conversation, which I'm still learning, I'm still enjoying, and I'm still trying to kind of like craft some specific skills. And then when I got to BBH after a bit more of a stint in the marketing and advertising space, BBH is one of those agencies where it's really hard to explain, but it's super special. It's one where there's this kind of like magic in the bottle. And as soon as you walk into the BBH London office, firstly, it's off Carnaby Street in Soho. So Carnaby Street and Soho in London, it's buzzy, it's cultural, there's lots of diversity. It's just a really good environment to be in. And the office itself is centered around this big space in the middle, an atrium where the rest of the floors are. And everyone works around it and they just share ideas. And it's one of those things where it's kind of like lots of amazing atoms that have different backgrounds, skills, passions, thoughts bouncing around off each other. And yes, it can be a little bit chaotic, and it's not an agency which is as slick process wise as any others. But the beauty in that is that when the magic happens and when that seed of an idea is planted and it's watered with the talent that you've got at BBH, it just grows into some spectacular campaigns and activities, which obviously BBH is famous for quite a lot of TV ads and things like that. But then they're taking steps into the space that we're playing around in too, slowly and gradually. But yeah, I landed in BBH, was totally awed. And I've primarily worked on the Audi account for a good 9.5 years, actually, with the team there. And also I've had many different roles there as head of project management, operations lead, business lead, resource management lead, and all this kind of stuff, which I was extremely blessed to be, one, mentored and led by some incredible industry people, and two, sharpen my teeth in lots of different areas, which I massively advise to people to, don't just stay still, keep moving and try different things and lean into different things, because it just has given me this different viewpoint on things that I would never have normally had, and I hadn't had previous agencies, which has just allowed me to kind of like broaden my vision, I guess, and see different horizons and take things that I hadn't considered before into consideration, and specifically things like Web3. And 24 months ago, it wasn't on my radar, and now I've fallen down the rabbit hole and absolutely adore it and having the best time of my life.
Right. And so you were referring to the importance of having different skill sets, different experiences that come together at times to really infuse um, um, interesting stuff into what you're working in, right? And it reminds me of Steve Jobs. I think the story goes that he took a class of typography, I think it was, and that influenced the whole journey of Apple in terms of design and everything. And can you imagine what would have happened to Apple if Steve Jobs hadn't had the curiosity to expand his knowledge and go to that class, right? And that's something that I try to apply in my career path and everyday life as well. Whenever I have the opportunity to learn something, discover something, I try to take it because you don't know when it's going to come back around and help you achieve what you have to do. So, and besides, I'm a curious person, so I understand what you mean here.
And something really interesting is some people who agree with this and others won't. But someone once said to me, and it was in one of my personal development reviews. I can't believe we've gone this way in the conversation. It's in one of my personal development reviews. And there were loads of things where people were like, yep, good, 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 good. And then there was a comment and they said, you know what, we're going to ignore this one. And I was like, no, I'd like to learn it. And we went through the comment on feedback because I wanted to understand it, to grow and all this kind of stuff. And then the individual said to me, the best thing you can actually do though is always explore passionate areas you have and just pour rocket fuel on it. Because if you try and water lots of different things and things that actually you're not passionate at, yes, they'll grow and they'll improve, but you'll become a bit of a jack of all, where actually if you pour rocket fuel on just the things you are passionate about and that you really want to explore and kind of like shoot off to the moon in, not only will you go on incredible journeys, you'll differentiate yourself and find a niche for yourself that will attract others with you. And ever since I took that on board, whether people have gone, we're not interested in this, or I don't understand it, or this shouldn't be our focus, I've just maintained that philosophy because it's what makes me excited about stuff. It's what makes me wake up in the morning. It's what makes me want to create awesome kind of work and output with other people. And personally, it's the logic always seems to come to fruition. And it's something I'm experiencing with all of kind of like the conversations with Web3, NFTs, advanced technologies, and all this kind of stuff like that, where I'm really passionate about it. I love it. I've fallen down the rabbit hole. I enjoy it a lot. We'll get into that in a bit more in a bit. And like you, there's probably people that surround you going, oh, it's a fad or it's for scammers and all this kind of stuff. But slowly, when people kind of like dig a little bit and they go on that journey with you and they see your passion, they see your excitement, and they start to do their own research and learn a little bit more, the light bulbs start flickering and they get excited too. And all of a sudden, you're creating amazing work in a new channel and in a new format, which is different to everyone else, and you're seeing rewards. So, yeah, it's really cool that kind of like focusing on your passions and backing yourself, I guess.
Exactly. So, you're a curious person, and that's what led you eventually to join the Web3 community, right? I assume that's personal curiosity that drove you to dig deeper and fall down the rabbit hole. What was so tell me more about your journey and what have you found on this Web3 journey of yours?
So it started off, and I'm guessing quite a few of the people that you speak to say the same things. I'm not one of those that has made generational wealth in this kind of like journey of mine. So it's so strange. I went on my stag do back in 2018 with my best friend and my brother, and us three specifically, were sat on the top of I don't know what it's called, but it was on top of the hill that has the fort, that you can see the harbour on one side and the beach and the town on the other side. And there was some, if you can kind of like imagine like some really lovely Spanish music playing in the background. It was a beautiful sunny day. We're drinking April, we're living the dream. And my best friend leans into me and goes, dude, I'm maxing out my overdrafts. I'm taking loans out galore. Trust me, you're going to want to get into this thing called crypto, and you want to buy into these coins. And never heard of any of it before. It wasn't even on my radar. So I totally ignored him, and I was kind of like, please be safe, because my risk tolerance isn't as high as most in the space.
Yeah, and I mean when you're taking a loan and going all in into crypto during the bear market, I mean your risk tolerance is like high up there.
Yeah, right.
There's hardly higher than that.
Yeah, but he was doing all this anyway. Ignored it and all this kind of stuff. And then 2020, COVID hit, and everyone had more time, right? Especially those, because at the time I was commuting to London 5 days a week and stuff like that. So all of a sudden I had gained 4 hours back in my life, which carved a bit for sport and all this kind of stuff like that. And then I just started exploring stuff. And anyway, my best friend called me, and because we don't talk about our money, he kind of left the conversation in 2018, and we don't, no one talks about their personal finance stuff. And then anyway, he called me up super excited. I don't know when in 2020, but it was definitely 2020. He was like, oh my God, did you take that advice? And I was like, what? And he was like, the crypto advice gave you, please tell me. And I was like, no. And then he had made a lot of money, and we're talking a lot of money. For me, a lad from Cornwall, retirement level money. And then it kind of like, okay, I'm not going to achieve that, but it just interested me because he did do a lot of research, and what he was talking to me about this specific cryptocurrency was the kind of like technical use cases. That's kind of boring. So anyway, started going on Twitter and reading more. But the thing that caught my attention more than cryptocurrencies was NFTs and all the brands that were popping up. Because as someone that loves creative and brands, I thought it was really cool that yes, you could get into crypto and you could trade and you can invest, but that's not what I'm about. I'm not a trader. I'm not even going to pretend to be a trader and all this kind of stuff. But what did interest me was, oh my God, I could actually join something, be part of a community with other people, especially if the community had specific values and things that interested me. And I could help that brand grow whilst it potentially benefited me. And at this time, obviously 2020, 2021, I was watching things like CryptoKitties and Bored Apes and Pudgies, which people, I think Pudgies were even before Bored Apes, but these things suddenly shoot up. Now, my risk tolerance wasn't high then, so I didn't get involved in any of them, but I was reading these stories, and yes, people were making a lot of money off them. But again, what interested me was the culture side of stuff then. I was like, okay, this is really cool. Not only can you be a part of a brand and a community, but actually you're at the front of technology, and a front seat of technology in a really creative space. impacting culture. And I don't know if you can remember, but like board apes were everywhere, like Rolling Stone and lots of obviously influencers and celebrities were posting about them and all this kind of stuff. And there was just this euphoria. So then, yeah, I started to get a little bit more into it. Again, not buying anything, but just listening to people on Twitter Spaces. And audio in socials, I think, was a game changer for me, because I'd never done that. I'd never jumped on a space and listened to lots of other people and stuff. So I thought that was really cool. And again, during COVID, it was a nice way to connect with other people whilst surrounded by people. And then skip to 2021. I was like, do you know what? I feel like I'll jump into a few projects. So I jumped into some low entry, not on a lot of people's radars, but they represented values I really enjoyed, and I started being part of communities. My risk tolerance got a little bit higher. Long story short, I then ended up in Doodles, and I kind of like found my home. And it's just been absolutely joyous since then, playing around with the NFTs. But again, I'm not an NFT trader. I'm definitely a collector, and I see 2021, 2022 shifted for me less about being part of something cool and cultural and a bit of a flex to more of, okay, now I'm starting to understand a little bit more about this. And it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts on my views here, but I was starting to understand three really key things here. There is a foundation that's happening, not just for Web3 brands, but mainstream brands using the new world values and technology that are out there, where there's new world brand values, where it's all about community, co-creation. There's advanced technologies coming in, which is, you've got your blockchain, you've got your immersive access like AR, VR, and you've got your advanced computing like AI. And then there's culture. So there was this foundation I was seeing of, this is going to impact both mainstream brands and Web3 brands, and you've got that foundation there. And then on top of that foundation, I saw three pillars pop up that I was regularly kind of like courting and being involved in myself, where you've got community. I love being a part of community and the shared skills and the knowledge and all this kind of stuff. You've got that participation element. I couldn't believe I could actively participate with the brand, and the brand was actively encouraging me and incentivizing me to build with my IP and their IP, which I thought was unbelievably cool. And then you've got rewards, and it didn't have to be commercial rewards. It could be rewards in terms of exclusive content or experiences and stuff like that. So I saw this foundation, I saw these pillars, and then there was this kind of light bulb moment back end of 2020, beginning of 2023, where I was discussing with some others and some strategists, where all of a sudden, lots of brands were playing in this space, both mainstream brands and Web3 brands, and they were using these foundations in these pillars to implement certain strategies in their creative and brand activations. And these strategies were rewarding behavior, they were engaging experiences, it was active participation, and brand ownership. And these four things I just keep spotting and going around. And a good example of each one, and another good thing before I get into them about the Web3 space, is you can network unbelievably fast, and you get access to VPs, chairmans, board people, founders, influencers, like so fast. And so going back to these four things, I was having conversations with these brands and the people working on these brands. And a good example of like the rewarding behavior one is 4 and 3 working with Starbucks Odyssey. And it's an incredible loyalty program, which encapsulates the foundation that I was talking about, but also those pillars. But they're leaning way more into that rewarding behavior in terms of their strategy and their activation. And then you've got that brand ownership, and you look at what .swoosh are doing, and they're giving people skin in the game in terms of co-creating trainers and products, and then rewarding people for participating both digitally and physical experiences and stuff. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. Then you've got kind of like active participation with, I guess, Adidas Alts, where you're going on a journey with the brand. And as you go on that journey and participate with the brand, you're rewarded with utilities and experiences. And okay, that was pretty cool. So played around there. And then that kind of like engages experiences, which I thought was brilliant because it was linked to the Volkswagen Group, which obviously Audi, one of my clients, is part of the Volkswagen Group, and Porsche with Porsche.eth. And they launched their digital collectible, which is a kind of like dynamic digital collectible, which allows access based on the tiering of fans and Porsche owners and community members to in real life experiences and digital experience. So I was just like, something hit me in 2022, 2023, and I was like, okay, the outside world, because they're not as deep as you and I fall into it, they see headlines like the headlines we saw yesterday of NFTs are down 99%, NFTs, blockchain's dead. But that's because it's a really clickbaity thing, and it's really easy to say that when you don't kind of like dig in a little bit deeper. When you take out the word NFT, when you take out the word blockchain, when you even take out the word Web3, and you actually look at it from more of a brand and comms, and like I said, those foundations of new world behaviors, culture, advanced technologies, community, participation, rewards, all of a sudden it is literally blossoming and buzzing with opportunities for mainstream brands and Web3 brands. But that never gets reported on. You don't see people reporting on the incredible things Nike are doing, or Porsche, or Louis Vuitton, or Gucci. Like, there are so many. Skodaverse is an incredible one too. So many great things. But yeah, so I remember what the initial question was. But on my journey in 2022, 2023, this kind of has kind of like come to this kind of amazing crescendo of incredible excitement about innovation for brands. Forget the technology language, just that really awesome opportunity to be at the front of something and go on the journey with these brands to create experiences for their consumers, their fans, their communities, and their purchasers moving forward, which I just think is one of the most exciting things to be a part of.
I share a similar journey to you. I also got interested in crypto in the first place. That's sort of like the entrance door usually, but I quickly dig through the space and got interested in NFTs for the same reasons as you, culture, the community aspect. Although I didn't understand it at first, but culture, community, all these things were things I could understand so much better than what crypto had to offer, because crypto is highly technical and highly financial. And coming from a marketing, branding background, I'm more receptive to concepts around culture and community and engagement and general space. And why I say I didn't understand community at first is, probably a bit more than 50% of the people that were in the space when I entered, which was 2021, were money driven. They wanted to make a buck of whatever NFTs were coming out. And so it was a crowd that didn't share such a depth as we have now. And I've recently started to understand what community really means and where the value resides. Because with all those people that are money driven leaving the space as prices have plummeted, then you only end up with a thin layer of hardcore believers in the technology, in the applications of that technology, in the communities that have been built and the APs that are being born from Web3. And so you get to mingle and network with people that have very interesting perspectives, and usually people that are very smart. And that comes back to the point that you mentioned before is today, I believe that the best place to network online is not LinkedIn, it's not Instagram, it's not Twitter, it's NFT Twitter. It's the communities. It's incredible because there's so very few people in the world right now that hold NFTs and that have such a deep belief that they're still in the space. So when you meet someone that not only has an NFT themselves, but shares the same NFT from the same, we both have a doodle, then we immediately connect. It's like so much stronger than both enjoying wine or both playing tennis. Like it's something where if you both have an NFT in this market, it means you share a lot of similar values and beliefs and interests, and usually you just like connect with people immediately. So it's the best time to be in the market.
Yeah, you mentioned, and I love that. And I just took a couple of notes of some stuff you mentioned there. So, on your point in terms of there's lots of incredible smart people that you can network with, um, it's funny because in lots of conversations or spaces, I've felt very much a level of imposter syndrome, which is interesting because when I have these conversations in the real world with clients, everyone's like, okay, but you're an expert and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, trust me, I'm not. I'm going on a learning journey and stuff like this. But in the actual space where we've got access to all these people, I genuinely feel like the dumbest person in the room. But I love that because I am learning so much and hopefully giving value back. But I'm learning so much from all these incredible people with backgrounds that I would never have ever interacted with in like the local pub, restaurant, or wherever, and bumped into them. And your community point is interesting too, because I had a view on community which was very old school. I have a very different view on community now. And there's a lady called Zoe, I can't remember her surname, but she did this wonderful, she's a strategist, and she did this wonderful piece on decoding community, which I kept reading and going over and over again. And when you speak to mainstream brands about their community, it's very much that mindset, and you serve content up, your community and audience digests and eats. But what I love about the communities we're talking about when we use the word community is it's very much a reciprocal relationship. It's not building for or sharing for, it's building with, sharing with, which is completely different. And that type of community, which exists in, we're using the word Web3 a lot, and there's been conversations in terms of ignore Web3, just like you would ignore NFTs, which I agree and disagree with, because from a tech point of view, yeah, get rid of it because it's just evolving brands and channels and stuff like that. But actually, when you're talking about things like the community thing I'm talking about, that reciprocal building with instead of building for is a definitely a Web3 mindset, because Web2 and Web1 is very serve up content and read and write kind of content. And that's the difference with the kind of communities we've got now, which I just think is another incredible thing for brands that see that and lean into that. And it's easier for brands that have those fandoms and communities already. So Nike has those fandoms and communities already. Starbucks has a fandom and community already. But those brands that don't have an existing or fandom and community, I think it's a really exciting time to, one, curate that and then lean into that and build something really special, but build it in the right environment. And I keep mentioning these because they're probably the most known ones. But when you look at Dot Swoosh and you look at Adidas Alts, they've got their and when you look at Mercedes-Benz NXTs, they've got their master brand social comms, and then they've got their more community and fandom brand conversational social channels, which allow them to have that reciprocal building with as opposed to building for type of approach. And I think that duality for brands is super, super exciting. So I love that you mentioned the community thing because I think it's such a core aspect moving forward.
Right. And to your point, I believe that community is now really getting like building sense. It didn't used to have as much sense in 2021 as it does now. When you see what brands were doing in 2021, it was like, okay, I'll launch a few NFTs. It's going to have a finite roadmap, and I'll build a community around that. And that model is actually not sustainable and doesn't yield as much value as the models that are emerging now. You see brands that launched quote unquote communities in 2021 that are now stuck with a group of people at the end of a roadmap where they're like, okay, what can I do with them? But so doesn't mean they can't, build a community from that. It's a great base, but it's not the community that I have in mind, which can yield can really power the next generation of consumer engagement among brands in 2023. And it's really about that, in my opinion, is Web3 is a way to deepen the consumer engagement and the relationship that you have with your consumers. When you, for example, think about it this way: you you may have worked in 10 different companies, like you may go shop in 10 different shops or brands, but probably very few leaders will have impacted you as much as the one that empowers you to make an impact, co-create strategies or activities with them, and reward you for it. All right, guys. So sorry for this interruption. My computer decided to crash, so we'll just catch up on what we were discussing about, as if nothing happened. So, I was saying, that the community engagement piece that Web3 offers to brands is is really like just being involved in work in a much more deep and interesting level, as you would if you would just have a boss pushing things to you, without making you part of the conversation. And it's really the same thing that is happening now. It's involving your fans, effectively turning consumers into fans, and then involving those fans into your activities, be it co-creating product, which can be ambitious and resource intensive on brand side. It can be something a little bit less intense. It can be just like, asking, having them vote if they own one of your NFTs, for example, or this type of things. But just making them part of the conversation, making them part of a community, and gathering people with similar interests and passion for your brand, in a place where they can connect with like-minded people and feel like they belong. It's really the next evolution of what a brand means, in my opinion.
No, do you know what? I couldn't agree more. And I was kind of like reliving an experience that I happened to have, which was exactly that when I saw something about art, technology, and how the motion and sounds and kind of like aspects of cars were being produced by an artist that the Fingerprint DAO were engaging with, which led me to find out it was actually the Mercedes activation. And what I really loved about that was there were people that were on their timeline talking about art and technology, not about Mercedes-Benz products. And it just sprang into my mind. Engagement is a really cool word that you use there, where that kind of like engagement of shared passions and values and interests is a Trojan horse to get people into your brand ecosystem and get them to have these experiences with other like-minded people in that kind of like environment. Whereas a brand, if you can curate that and then use that to give that value exchange, which you were talking about earlier, I think that's to take them people on a journey with you as a brand. I think that's incredibly powerful. And I love what you said there in terms of turning people into fans before they sometimes buy your products or engage or with you on more of a kind of like a higher involvement slash purchasing level. And I think that is another subtle shift where in this space and the way things are moving for brands, it's not about and there are some people on LinkedIn, strategists and individuals that I've spoken to some brands that are shifting their mentality. Sounds really scary, but pretty cool. Where instead of developing a product and then selling it to people, it's create a fandom, create a community. Then once you've got that, then curate your product and then doing it that way, which is a completely different way. And I'm not saying that will work for everything because it won't. But if you're a brand that has a fandom and community, or in an industry which you could easily curate a fandom and a community and can actually do that other approach where you're bringing people together, listening to their insults, got your finger on the pulse of what they would like, their needs and ambitions and stuff in that environment, in that kind of like reciprocal relationshipy way, and then develop products that they're going to enjoy and that they've developed with you. I think that's super special. And I do think in some cases you can do both. And again, one model doesn't fit everyone, but I just think it's extremely interesting that you mentioned that in terms of the fandom and engagement, because I couldn't agree more with you.
Mhm. And besides that, when there's the engagement and fandom piece, but then there's the understanding of your community piece, and Web3 opens the door to those qualitative um, um, data collection points that you mentioned. You know, you have a community, you can discuss with them what they're interested in and everything, and you have a safe space to get that qualitative data. But then you also have the quantitative piece, which is analyze on-chain data and effectively understand the behavior of people. It's not just going to be numbers and cookies and, oh, they're like interested in this, but oh, they actually interacted with this specifically at this time. And based on their portfolio and other interactions they've had, we can understand that they like this and this and this. And especially for industries that are, or brands that are working in a B2B setup, um, it allows you to understand the whole of your end consumer base, which is impossible when you have a network of resellers that own this end consumer relationship. So I know, different companies that are looking into these topics, and Web3 really offers an interesting solution on that front. So on different angles of marketing, to me, Web3 makes so much sense. And that's why I'm so passionate about the space at this moment in time. There's a whole revolution happening, and that is much deeper than what people may think.
And I think the really key thing, and like I love your passion and I'm super passionate about it as well. I think that kind of like there is a revolution to a degree, but I think it will happen in a evolutionary way for brands and people. And also what I love is that it's not just tech, it's a mindset. And you've got the Web3 mindset evolution that's going on, and you've got the Web3 tech revolution that's happening in the space, which will happen in an evolutionary way outside of the space. And it's just unbelievable. On your data point, and this is really top line, I was listening to a recording where someone was talking about how using the blockchain technology, especially looking at individuals' wallets, they did an example on, and I'm not going to do it justice because when you see the visualization of it, it's incredible, but they did an example of Yuga. So Yuga can see how many community members they've got based on who are holding their assets, who are longer term ones, and how they're interacting within the ecosystem on their socials, which is incredible. But not only that, you can obviously see those individuals which are holding assets, what other wallets and stuff are linked to that, and what kind of like disposable income is in their wallets that they then spend in the ecosystem. And there was this really cool visualization I saw where you could see how many community members and holders of Bored Apes retained their Bored Apes and their mutants, were using ApeCoin and all this kind of stuff like that, but then also holding on to their further assets that were airdrops and or buying more Yuga assets. And there was this unbelievable stat, and I'm not going to quote it, but it was lots and lots of like, I want to say a billion, and like I like definitely research it, but it was definitely hundreds of millions. I think it is a billion, but in that ecosystem, in their communities' wallets, there is that much money. And obviously there's holders, which you and I know in the space, that have vast resources. So not every single holder has these deep pockets, but there is a huge reservoir of reserves that Yuga knows that their audience has. Now, whether they leverage on that as a kind of like, by producing further products for them to purchase or anything like this, or get that insight in terms of the lifestyles and demographics and stuff like that. It's just this rabbit hole of data and information, which these digital collectibles and NFTs, they're like giant cookies, which just supersede anything else that I've ever researched or seen before, which again, there's information that you can take, which looks really interesting. And there's actuals, and there's a strategist that I work with at BBH who he's brilliant because I'm really passionate. I come up with all these things and like I want to push them on and have these conversations with the clients. And he very wisely kind of like has that outsider, more not party pooper, but more hold on. We've got to think about this methodically. And going back to that data thing, there is so much data, but it's understanding what's relevant and what can actually help your brand and shifting through the data. There is, once you do that, the type of things I've seen through specialist company and agency offerings, incredible. Stuff I would never have dreamed of that you could get insight of, um, is just super telling, which can aid that more what you and I do. Better curation of campaigns and comms and activities that can help influence consumer behavior, but obviously with the lens that we love, in a very value exchange reciprocal way, which I just think is super interesting.
On that agency piece, what role do you see agencies having in the Web3 ecosystem moving forward? Because there's Web3 native agencies that are working exclusively on Web3 with Web3 clients, and then you have those Web2 agencies. So we call them Web2s, like traditional agencies that Publicis and BBH and all those ones that also work with brands, and usually brands, or some brands, would rather go to Publicis than going to a Web3 native agency, just because, well, the brand, the aura of Publicis and the proven track record that they have, and also existing relationships, they would probably go to Publicis and ask Publicis how they can support in the Web3 endeavors of the brand. So how do you see the whole agency world embracing that Web3 angle? Do you think it's going to happen? Do you think it's going to be more specific agencies? How do you see this?
Good question. I think it's multifaceted. So firstly, I think the space and again, the Web3 mindset and technology available, I think it's going to impact agencies, and this is very blunt, you can go deeper, but in two ways. I think there's actually how agencies themselves can adopt these technologies and these mindsets and values in terms of how they actually operate. And then obviously what they can offer and how they would then work with either mainstream brands or brands already forged in Web3. And for example, and you're probably similar to me, we're passionate about this space. We live and breathe it. It's incredible. We enjoy it. And we spend a lot of our free time in this space building together. And lots of mainstream brands and agencies at the minute are going on a very slow but safe kind of like journey with this. The best way I can explain also, because you mentioned Publicis Group, and I had the conversation with the head of innovation at Publicis Group who's looking after this. So BBH, obviously I'm passionate about it, and there's a few other people that are leaning in and they're passionate about it too, but we currently don't offer that kind of skill set ourselves. However, as you mentioned, we are part of the Publicis Group, and the Publicis Group have a dedicated team where there is all these tools that are super attractive to mainstream brands or Web3 brands to utilize. One of the interesting things is kind of risk that comes into all of this as well, because if I owned BBH and it was my own big agency, I probably wouldn't run into this fast, because I would need to set myself up on the blockchain. I would need to hire a load of talent, and I would need to, there's a load of risk involved too, right? Because of I would be owning things for brands or working with them and, buying and building in crypto. And that's where the Publicis Group is really interesting, because they've developed, there is through this team that they've developed that will be available, these tools and these skills for all Publicis Group agencies. If a client that's mainstream said to us, we want to build on the blockchain, we can go to our partners at Publicis Group and we can do that. And there's no risk for the client or BBH, because it's been built out and all this, and the risk is somewhere else. So I think that's really attractive. And I think that's an initial first step. But the reality is quite a lot of mainstream brands and quite a lot of agencies, they're not leaning into it as hard and fast as us and going on a journey as quickly as us, because they're not living in the bubble we're living in. And it is a bit of a bubble in terms of how things change so quickly, and we're at the front of it, but they don't need to either. And that, I think that's another interesting thing too, because the clients I'm speaking to, as of BBH, I'm taking them on a journey in this space, and we're looking at opportunities for their brand, and we will work with the relevant external third-party partners that can deliver their needs, as well as look at solutions we're obviously within the Publicis Group. But it's a journey where the language I use is really important. The showing them what I'm talking about in simplistic ways is really important too. but also they don't need to know the back end of it all as much as maybe you and I understand it. And I think if agencies approach it in that way, I think it's really interesting. So yeah, from an agency point of view, there's how are agencies going to use this as a weapon just to do their work? Because advanced technology like AI and creative and ideation and strategy is a really incredible thing to use, but you've got to use it safely in a sandboxy kind of environment. But then, yeah, how do they service their clients and how do they service both mainstream and Web3 is really interesting. The Web3 agencies I've spoken to, who are incredible, they're very niche at what they do. And I think it's interesting, and they are working with other brands and brand teams that are extremely niche in what they do. And a good example of this, and I know Forum Free are breaking out, but was the Starbucks loyalty program and Forum Free. That's a very niche specific thing and it works. So it is interesting. I think agencies as a whole, and this is just my view, will need to adopt and adapt. And I don't think things like blockchain technology or AI are, and specifically AI, are a threat to agencies. I think they're actually, and people do worry about stuff. You know, I've had people come up to me and go, oh my God, what about strategy? What about copywriters? Are we redundant and all this? If you learn and develop with the tool, I think that's incredibly powerful. I don't personally think it's going to replace. I think it's just going to make people more effective and develop and push what they do. And it's pushed what I do, and I know because personally, by having conversations with my clients, by playing around in the personal space, I've been using tools, and when I've been doing it with clients, I've been using the Publicis sandbox tool, so it's all safe and stuff. And when I've been doing it by myself, I'm using my own tech, and I've learned new things and I've explored new things, which have been incredible. And I've then applied that to how I do stuff in the agency, and it's made me more effective, and it's curated good things with the clients that we wouldn't have done before. So it's super exciting. But those agencies that don't adopt and adapt, I think they will struggle in the long term. We are very early, but I could see 5, 10 years down from here, the agency world will look extremely different to it is now. Can you imagine how production will look like further down the line? And you and I see what Ingy does with Doodles, and then we're obviously in some private chat with him. He plays around with AI video content, and he's been playing around with AI art. And I know AI video content is not there yet. In the last 2 months, what I've seen happen in terms of what you can produce is phenomenal. So can you imagine what video content and being able to curate video content compared to the current production methods that brands do for specific tiered levels is just going to be insane. And it's going to impact every area of an agency. But again, it's not a threat. It's tools that we can weaponize ourselves with that can just make our offerings even better. Yeah, it's incredible. It blows my mind. It's incredible, but I think there's a shift, and those that ride that wave will reap the benefits for sure.
I agree with you. I've talked with Ingy. That was the first episode I did on Fuel for Thought. He has interesting perspectives that I share as well, that you share as well, is there's no use going against the current. If you're trying to swim upriver, like you're gonna just like get exhausted and eventually you're gonna drown. But if you go with the river and you try to take advantage from the power that it has to your own advantage, then you might get far and in a direction that makes sense, right? And so AI, Web3, they're all incredible tools that are not mature enough yet to serve all the use cases that they're going to be able to serve down the road. But the fundamental that they offer right now and the promises that they hold for the future are, to me, valuable enough, relevant enough, revolutionary enough that you cannot imagine the future without them. So either you have two choices. You just either you go against it, and that's probably not going to work out too well for you, or you go with it and you try to harness it to your advantage.
It's a really interesting thing, and there's a psychology thing that I've seen and I've been reading about as well. It's like people have genuine dissonance to this kind of technology, and that's where, and I did too. I was like, oh my God, how's this going to change my job and all this kind of stuff like that? And then instead of that, I was just like, do you know what? I'm going to skill up. I'm going to lean into this, and it's just been incredible. And like I said about the clients, and it's really strange. Like I have like my clients, we become extremely close. So we're close professionally and informally. And it's interesting because in an informal setting, you know, I play around with Midjourney, and I've shown them some things where you can type a couple of sentences of a prompt, and oh my God, their product is in a environment that current wise as an agency would be a shoot abroad, get product highly expensive, highly kind of like time consuming, resource consuming, and all this kind of stuff like that. And these tools can help you do that. Now, again, like Ingy probably said to you, they're not the finished article. You then need to do some additional work to stuff, and probably like you and I do. And you know, we use stuff in AI, Midjourney and Creative and Adobe and all this kind of stuff, and then we have to tweak it a bit, polish the last 5% and stuff like that. But they were just blown away that they kept throwing me challenges on WhatsApp, which was hilarious, where they were like, stick RX in this environment, stick RX in this environment. And I was like, here you go, here you go, here you go. And they were like, oh my God, you've been doing this in like 30, 60 seconds. And yes, it wasn't polished. And there were some things as well that I think are really important, like bias and diversity. Like there were things that we spotted in terms of, do you know what, this actually, you know, it's not factoring things that we factor and push hard for in terms of diversity and inclusivity and stuff like that. And those things will evolve too, but we're very early. And like I said, the video thing I've seen in the last 2 months, unbelievable. Can you imagine a year? Can you imagine 2 years? And if you're an agency and you're sticking to your current processes, your margins will be higher because these tools can help you be more effective. But also your clients by them and our clients will potentially be implementing these things too in-house, which is another kind of area in terms of how agencies are going to have to adopt. Like, it's a huge topic. We could chat about this for ages, but the bit that interests me the most is definitely the implementation of these tools in existing, to take your phrase, Web2 mainstream agencies versus Web3 based agencies. And the speed and nimbleness I've seen of Web3 agencies is incredible. And that actually is a threat. But until those Web3 agencies have built up case studies and got some good clients and stuff like that, they're kind of like a sleeping giant threat at the minute. But those times will come when, you know, the mainstream media, instead of talking about NFTs have gone to 95% zero and all this kind of stuff, if they start talking about, oh my God, have you seen what Lufthansa have done and who did that for them? Or have they seen what Starbucks Odyssey have done and who did that for them? They're not your traditional big agencies. They're really small shops of 3 or 4 people that are producing some really cool stuff, but they're implementing these technologies into their shops. And that is incredible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Adam. That was very interesting talk. I hope it was interesting to you guys as well, listening to us. You can find us on Twitter. So I'm happy. He's Dunk Cookie. That's Web3, you know. But on LinkedIn, I'm Chris. He's Adam. And please subscribe to the channel if you found this content interesting. There's many more interviews to come. And Adam, I'll be seeing you again. We definitely need to dig deeper into this topic.
Cool. Thank you very much for having me. I massively enjoyed that. Thank you.